Hey guys, I'm out here at the Soundfront Studios. I'm visiting because the Claremont Institute, where I work, is hosting a fellowship that I'm doing. And I thought I'd stop by and say hi to the guys, and they never let me go without ribbing me a little bit. So they sprung this on me. I have no idea what this is going to be like, but they thought it would be funny if they showed me some videos from the internet. I think this is going to be some cursed content that I will then react to. So here it is. Here's the first one.
Okay, emergency press conference. Roe versus Wade just got overturned. Let me start by saying this is a Dave Portnoy press conference. This doesn't reflect Barstool, all right? Barstool is 300 whatever people. They all may think certain ways. This is just me, how I feel. I feel like I have to speak on this issue. I already talked about it a little bit. To me, this is just pure insanity. Pure insanity. We are going backwards in time. We are literally going backwards in time. It makes no sense how anybody thinks it's their right to tell a woman what to do with her body. I just don't get it. To take away the ability to make informed decisions on how they want to live their lives is bananas. I know people will be like, well, no, it's a constitutional issue. They're just giving it to the states. Well, like what, 20 states are saying they're going to overturn it right away? And what if you're poor in that state and you can't go to another state and things like that? It's just nuts to me. Not to mention, the same people are saying, they want to take it away and overturn it are also like, got to protect guns because of the Constitution. At what point do you look at the Constitution and say, hey, this was written by people who had slaves? Maybe not everything is exactly to a T in the Constitution. Like a million years from now, you're going to use a document written in the... It's just nuts. In what world? The world evolves. People evolve. Technology evolves. You got to evolve. You can't stick with this document and look at that and be like, that's the end-all, be-all. It's literally crazy pills. This is coming from somebody who consistently is like, the U.S. is the best country in the world by a mile. I still believe it. But we're going backwards. And the left and the right suck so f***ing bad. Like, the left hates me. The woke left, the liberals, they're crazy. They're insane people. Yet, I end up having to vote for a moron like Biden because the right is going to put Supreme Court people in who are just ruining this country and taking basic rights away. I honestly believe 95% of the people in the country think like me. They're socially liberal and they're financially conservative. They like 90% of what Republicans, they don't like the woke culture, all this craziness. But then you look at what they're doing and it's like you're taking away basic rights. What's next? Same-sex marriage? Like, what is next? It's insane. That's why we have to vote for the morons like Biden, who's borderline incompetent, because it's too dangerous to vote Republican. Like, what the are we doing? Wake up.
Okay, well, my favorite part of that video, the only accurate part of that video is when he says, I don't get it, right? When he says, he actually has no idea what he's talking about. And when he says, I just have to say something about this issue, it's like, you really, you really don't. You obviously have no idea what anybody's talking about. You definitely don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. You can just you can just do the I'm listening thing, right? No, look, I mean, I like Dave Portnoy, in general. I was really impressed with and touched by his response to the pandemic. He went around and actually raised money for businesses that were closed. And so, I have a lot of time for him. But this is just fundamentally wrong-headed. And I think in some ways it's illustrative, right? It shows you, to a certain degree, what people who don't know anything about this stuff are thinking and why it's so easy for these kinds of facile narratives to slip through it. We're moving backwards, right? Moving backwards from what, right? Where is history marching? This idea that time cancels truth, right? Fundamentally progressive idea. Well, are you just going to use this document from before written by people that were bad to do the stuff that is also bad now? I mean, even leaving aside how you feel about abortion, right? I mean, Portnoy himself, right? If he really loves America, bro, if you love America, what do you love about it, right? I mean, what's good about America? Surely America as founded, right? The Constitution is the law of the land. And nobody is actually saying, right, that you have to install some theocracy to make the country work. Far from it, right? I mean, and this question, what's next? Homosexual marriage, right? Because of course, right, things that have happened, right, they're in the future, and therefore they're fundamentally better than things that were in the past, right? And I do think, when he says 95% of Americans agree with me, like, I think that's pretty false. I think that, most Americans are kind of divided and feel complex on the issue of abortion, but there's a significant portion of the country, many more people than 5%, who think that a fetus is a life, that a baby in the womb is a life. And, this is a guy who's, done a lot of good for the world, who's made a lot of money, but he's been raised fundamentally in a culture that has taught him something profoundly untrue. It's taught him to look away from the life of the vulnerable, right? And this is what euphemism and this is what the corruption of language does. He probably, look, this whole thing about like nobody has the right to tell a woman what to do with her body, right? Complete and total smokescreen. Utterly beside the point, right? No human being, this is something that Americans actually do agree on. I'll tell you what Americans do agree on. No single human being walking through the country, or vanishingly small people, believe that women and all people don't have the right to do what they want with their body. At least understand, if you're going to be criticizing the pro-abortion side, at least take 5 seconds to grasp what people on the anti-abortion side are saying, right? Just take 5 seconds. I understand. I grasp what pro-abortion people are saying. I get their arguments, right? The people who make these kinds of critiques have literally no idea who they're arguing with nobody. Like, really scored a great point against the guy you invented in your head, bro, who thinks that women shouldn't have control over their own bodies, right? That's not a guy. That dude does not exist. What people are arguing is that it's not the woman's body. It's the body of another unique human being with a unique genetic code. No woman has ever given birth to a toaster or a cow. We know what's in there. We know what's going to come out. And we know that it is uniquely genetically constituted from the moment of its conception. This is one way in which Roe v. Wade was profoundly regressive, right? The American Medical Association, Blackmun, in the Wade decision, cites the American Medical Association saying, I think that most people, the association said, we think that most people don't understand what an abortion is, because they still have these outdated notions of like, maybe the quickening or when you can feel the baby move, but they don't know that science is, ultrasound and genetics is discovering that this is a person, right? This is a being in the womb. And that's the argument, so don't come at me with this stuff like, you don't believe in a woman's right to choose. I mean, first of all, plenty of women are pro-life, right? Lots and lots of women are pro-life. I learned most of my pro-life arguments from women, right? But this thing where like, you don't believe in a woman's fundamental right to choose. Like, do 5 minutes of research. Google for 5 minutes what the pro-life side actually believes. And maybe then we can have a conversation. But until then, keep your mouth shut. So as I think I said, these are probably all going to be what we call cursed content, ye olde cursed content. But I hear that they get worse and worse, they tell me. So stick around for the third. Let's do the next one. This is cruel. Well, we fixed it. We fixed all of America's problems. They twerked, and now it's also. Oh no, we didn't fix the problems with the twerking. Okay, well that's unfortunate, but it was worth a shot, right? Maybe twerk a little more, and it'll all be okay. I don't know, kumbaya, right? No, I mean this really is cruel of you to make me watch it, but it's kind of sad to me. Like, that's a certain form of mental illness. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't like diagnose it in any sense, but people get wrapped up in the logic or illogic of a bad idea, And at a certain point, the philosophy that tells you you're nothing but a bag of meat, the philosophy that tells you that a fetus is just a clump of cells, the philosophy that tells you that you're just a chemistry set floating around in a sort of skeleton and, piloting your brain from the cockpit, like that, of course, like what's that philosophy going to do to you? You think you can just go around saying stuff like that without it having any effect on how you view yourself, how you view your fellow man, right? Whether or not you're willing to degrade yourself in public. I mean, this is what this stuff does. People think they can just go around and say these bizarre and ridiculous things in other contexts, like a fetus is just a clump of cells, right? People think they can go say that, compartmentalize, say that in one aspect of their lives, right? And then not have it seep out into the rest of their philosophy and their actions and their behaviors. But you say something enough times, right? Even if you haven't fully thought through the implications of it, right? It gets under your skin, right? Words, this is something I'll agree with the left about. Words are powerful, right? I mean, words, even if you don't understand the implications of them when you're saying them, they matter. They get under your skin. And if you say that a fetus is just a clump of cells, well, you're just a clump of cells too. And so if that's how you view humanity, like, of course you're going to end up reducing your politics into an obscene display of self-degradation, right? I mean, nobody should be, I don't care what you believe about abortion, this or that. Like, you just, you shouldn't degrade yourself in that way. You're a God-created being. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not, that's just not befitting of your dignity as a human person. And not for nothing, man, but like, demons are real, like they exist. And people always think that when you say demon possession occurs, you're condemning the person who's experiencing it. But I'm just saying, I was on, I think it was Reddit, or I saw somebody post from Reddit this thing about the Church of Satan, right? And this guy was literally evangelizing the Church of Satan. And he said, it's really just about what we really believe in is bodily autonomy and rights. It's got nothing to do with actually worshiping Satan. And I thought, sir, I have news. Because in fact, when you do those sorts of things, when you say, that we're worshiping Satan, but not really, right? You're actually invoking principalities and powers that exist outside of you that are greater than you. And they exist whether you believe in them or not, right? And so when you usher in this form of logic, right? Logic has a certain power, right? That's something outside of you that's operating your body, right? But Jordan Peterson says, if you're lying, who's speaking, right? Who's the person speaking through you? Because it's not you, right? Similarly, if you're saying something that doesn't make sense, if you're saying something degrading about the human person, if you're saying that humans are just clumps of cells, right? You're letting something into your mind that's going to operate in you and through you, right? People don't have ideas, ideas have people. Isn't that what Jung says? And that's how this stuff works, man. So look, in the Bible, we have all these stories of demon possession and exorcism, and we talk about them as if they're some sort of outdated superstition. Just a description of the world, man. Just what happens when you let that stuff in. All right. I feel I'm tan, rested, and ready, moisturized, living my best life, and I feel like I'm prepared for this third and last video. Here we go.
Get angry! This is atrocious! This is war on women! How f***ing dare the Supreme Court do this? F*** you, Kavanaugh! F*** you, Gorsuch, for lying under oath when you were confirmed, saying that you believed that this was settled! Women will die! But as long as it fits your Christian goddamn narrative, it must be correct! White women of privilege will still have access after their senators f*** them! Poor working mothers will not! Young women who are victims of sexual assault will not! Women who found out that their child is not viable in the third trimester will not! And who the f*** knows what's gonna happen ectopically, because half you men prove that you don't know what an ectopic pregnancy is! How do I have less rights than my mother? Not everybody believes in your sky daddy! Not everybody believes in your cloud papa! The fact that you tied religion to your decision is pathetic! Rolling back the clock on women's rights and bodily autonomy is pathetic! You f***ing conservatives love fetuses! You love fetuses! You are pro-birth! You are pro-amniotic sac because fetuses can't talk and they can't vote against you. But they make a good narrative for your re-election campaigns. Pathetic! This will never stop abortions, ever. It stops them from being safe. It stops women from dying from them. It stops women from having back alley abortions or throwing themselves downstairs. All you did was hurt women. Women of color, BIPOC women, minority women, women who are in poverty, women who have to make a horrifying decision of their life versus the fetus. Most of the time, it's a clump of goddamn cells. Cells! So women get to relive their sexual assaults for life or are tied to their assailant. You care more about your damn guns than you do a woman's life. Proof every damn day. FYI, there are children in the foster care system that you won't adopt. So please tell me how you are pro-life. You are pro I get my way. I pray you never get another restless night's sleep in your life thinking about what you did to women. This is not over, not by a long shot. How dare you? Karma does not forget. And she may take some time to come back around, but she will get to you. Not on my watch, f***ers.
Is that how you say BIPOC? I thought it was BIPOC. Maybe I'm getting distracted. This is probably not the major issue here. I'm angry. I mean, actually, the only part of that I sort of am willing to sign on to is, I do love fetuses. I love unborn babies, and I want them to be alive. I would like them to continue being alive. But actually, I'd like to address this thing about women throwing themselves downstairs and the coat hangers and the back alleys and the ectopic pregnancies is another really big one, right? First of all, treating an ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion. Nobody thinks that. Nobody who's studied this issue for 5 minutes thinks that ectopic pregnancies should be forced to proceed, right? That's not a viable pregnancy. It's not the same thing as what we're talking about. That's a completely unrelated issue. But this thing where, you're going to force women to give birth even if they have preeclampsia and it's going to threaten their life. And this has always been a sham. This was a sham and an emotional smokescreen from the beginning. And the way that I know that is that the law which was struck down in Roe v. Wade already had exceptions in place to meet those tragic contingencies. That's not, nobody, myself included, nobody denies that such contingencies exist. Nobody denies that we live in a terrible fallen world in which you don't have to make terrible choices, right? But the pro-life approach to that question is to say, you are in this position making a terrible choice in that extreme case, those few extreme cases, right? You are in the position of having to choose between two different lives. And Roe v. Wade fundamentally denies that that's what's happening. And that's why it had nothing to do with abortion being safe, legal, and rare. It had to do with unpersoning an entire category of people, and shout your abortion was baked into it from the beginning. I would be willing to bet that there's certainly a lot of shouting going on in that video. So I would be willing to bet that this is not a woman who thinks that abortion should only be legal in those extreme cases, right? This is somebody who clearly, wants abortion to be fully available on demand. I can't say I find myself incredibly optimistic about the possibilities that she might herself get pregnant in the future. So I'm not sure that this decision necessarily affects her directly. But honestly, again, it's hard for me to get mad, as I'm apparently supposed to do, because when I look at somebody screaming in her car like that, I see a victim of a larger system, right? That is manipulating people to feel inchoate rage, right? To dominate their politics with a certain ill-informed reaction of inchoate rage when they're told to. They're basically being trained to scream on cue, to scream on command. And I have to confess that I think there is a certain pleasure in it. I think that people, are very addicted to this feeling of being extremely outraged by the dystopian horrors that are being ushered in by the theocrats, right? I mean, that's simply not what's happening here. That is a fever dream and a fantasy, right? I mean, the thing where she says, you used religion in your decision, I read through this entire decision. I don't think that that's what it's based on at all. I mean, it's an act of constitutional reasoning. I certainly have religious reasonings for being happy about it myself. I'm a private citizen. I didn't write the thing. This is not something that only Christians can get behind. And the inability to even grasp, what's going on, what's actually going to be happening, and what the pro-life cause is actually about suggests that this is a person, this is not like the leader of a movement. This is not somebody even who's really thinking for herself. It's a person who is a pawn in a rage machine that benefits certain powerful people, right? People who want to weaponize arcane and extreme fears, right? Who want to hold up bizarre disaster scenarios in front of their voters so that they'll go to the polls and continue handing power over to people who hate this country, want to unmake it from the ground up, right? That is what is going on here. And there's a certain addiction to the anger and to the rage and to the enthusiasm. I get that. Everybody who protests anything feels a certain rush of euphoria. But you just want to say, think for a second, right? Who's benefiting from this anger? Who's getting something out of your tears and your frustration and your screaming? I don't think it's you. I don't think that your life or your interests are served by bowing down before this idol of rage. I just don't think that that's how you're going to live your best life. Even if you and I are going to disagree about, what abortion should look like in this country, even if I'm going to be more pro-life than you, simply out of concern for you. I don't really want you to be a rage puppet in somebody else's cynical political game. I mean, call me a nasty theocrat or something, but I just don't think that's your best life. Thank you for sticking with me through this suffering. I'm sorry that you had to deal with it, but if I have to suffer, you have to suffer, which is one of the main principles on my podcast, Young Heretics. No, it's Young Heretics is actually not about watching screamy clips from nasty libs. It's about sort of doing away with all of that, actually, leaving it outside the door, checking all the political fighting at the door, and digging a little bit deeper into what's really going on, the spiritual and philosophical crises that we're facing. I have a book coming out, How to Save the West, Ancient Wisdom for 5 Modern Crises, which you can pre-order on Amazon. And that's, somewhere where I deal with this. And the other place where I deal with it weekly, every week, it's my great joy to be talking about this stuff on Young Heretics. And I hope that you will come and join us wherever you get your podcasts or at youngheretics.com.